The sharp hum of the apartment's air conditioning did little to mask the unsettling silence that hung in the air. James had never been particularly fond of his alien neighbor, but tonight, as he sat alone on his couch, staring out the window at the gleaming lights of the city, something felt different. Something felt off. At first, it was the subtle things. Strange noises from next door, low, rhythmic thumping, like the sound of something heavy moving against the walls. He had dismissed it as just another oddity in a building that housed an assortment of strange neighbors. But tonight the sounds were louder, more deliberate. Then there was the strange odor, an acrid scent, faint but pungent, drifting through the walls. It lingered in the air, making his throat itch, his eyes water. He glanced at the clock, 2:17 a.m. Not again. This had been going on for the past week. These odd sounds and smells, always late at night. Something had changed. Something was wrong. James stood up, his legs stiff from sitting too long. He crossed the living room to the window, parting the curtains to peer out at the quiet streets below. His mind wandered back to the strange being who lived next door. She had arrived a few months ago, a tall, slender figure with sharp features and eyes that shimmered like liquid silver. Her skin, a pale shade of blue, made her stand out in a crowd. But it was her behavior that had always intrigued James. She kept to herself, never speaking to anyone except when absolutely necessary, and always gave him the coldest of stares whenever their paths crossed in the hallway. But tonight, something was different. The air felt heavier, charged with an unfamiliar energy. Suddenly a loud crash echoed from the apartment next door. The sound was followed by a series of frantic footsteps. James flinched, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what was going on, but his instincts told him it wasn't good. Without thinking, he grabbed his keys and rushed out of his apartment, moving quickly down the hallway toward the door that separated his world from hers. The thumping noise continued, growing louder, more erratic, as though something or someone was in distress, or worse, attacking. He reached her door and hesitated for a moment. He could hear breathing on the other side, ragged and desperate. What the hell is going on? James knocked sharply on the door, his hand trembling slightly. "Hey," he called, his voice louder than he intended. "Are you okay? What's going on in there?" Silence. The sound of movement behind the door made him tense. Was she hurt? Or, no, this couldn't be happening. Not now. Not with everything he'd heard. Suddenly the door creaked open just enough to reveal her face. Her silver eyes glinted in the dim light, filled with an emotion James couldn't place. "What do you want?" Her voice was barely a whisper, cold and distant. "Are you okay?" James asked again, unable to keep the concern from his voice. "I heard something. What's happening?" For a moment there was only silence. Then, with an eerie calmness, she stepped aside, allowing James a glimpse of the room beyond. It was then that he saw it. The walls were covered in strange markings, lines, and symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. In the center of the room, an odd, glowing object sat on a pedestal, surrounded by the faintest glow of bioluminescence. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as though something ancient and powerful was stirring in the space. "What is all this?" James asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end as he took another step closer to the pedestal. Something inside him, something primal, was warning him to stay back. "It's nothing," she said quickly, shutting the door slightly. "You shouldn't be here." Before he could react, she slammed the door shut in his face. James stood there, stunned, his heart pounding as he stared at the closed door. What had just happened? And why did he feel like he had just uncovered something far worse than he could have ever imagined? He turned back to his apartment, his mind racing with questions, but as he approached his door, the sound of the thumping next door intensified. Once again, It wasn't just a noise now, it was a rhythm, a beat like a heartbeat, slow, deliberate, and unmistakably alive. What the hell is going on? James stepped back and stared at her door again. The strange odor wafted from the cracks in the wood. The thumping was growing louder, almost deafening now. He felt a wave of unease wash over him, the feeling that something was about to snap. He needed answers. He needed to know what was happening. And most importantly, he needed to know what kind of danger he was in. As the minutes passed, the thumping stopped suddenly, and the silence that followed was suffocating. James couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond his understanding, something powerful and beyond his control. He waited a moment longer before he knocked again, this time more cautiously, trying not to provoke her, but the door didn't open. James felt a chill spread down his spine as he stood there, staring at the door, waiting for any sign of movement. He was about to turn away when he heard it, a low, guttural growl, not from her, but from something else, something far worse. It came from within the apartment, coming closer. His pulse quickened. Without thinking, James grabbed the handle of her door, twisting it open just as a surge of dark energy seemed to radiate from within. The glow from the pedestal pulsed brighter, casting shadows across the walls in grotesque shapes. His breath caught in his throat as he stepped inside. His eyes locked on the alien form that had emerged from the shadows. It wasn't her. It was something far worse. The creature that had emerged was a hulking mass of shifting limbs and glowing tendrils, its skin rippling with unnatural movement. Its eyes, black as the void, locked onto James with a chilling, calculating gaze. The air thickened, and James felt his chest tighten. He stumbled backward, trying to escape, but the door slammed shut behind him. Panic surged through him as he realized the nightmare he had just walked into was only beginning. This wasn't just a neighbor's mating season. This was something far, far worse. The creature hissed, its body lurching forward as its tendrils stretched toward him. James's heart raced as he realized he had made a grave mistake. There was no escape now. The horror he was witnessing had only just begun, and as the creature's tendrils reached out to him, the door behind him suddenly exploded open, and a familiar voice called out, "Get out of there." It was her, his alien neighbor, but her voice was no longer cold. It was desperate, terrified. What was she afraid of? Before he could respond, the door slammed shut again, leaving James trapped in the dark, suffocating room with the alien horror. James's breath came in sharp, shallow gasps as the door slammed behind him, trapping him inside the dimly lit room. His heart hammered in his chest, the rhythmic thudding matching the echo of the creature's movements. The air felt thick, saturated with a sense of dread that coiled around his lungs, making each breath a struggle. The creature. It wasn't just an alien. It was something else entirely, something that should not have been here. Its dark, glistening tendrils moved erratically, as if searching for something or someone, and James knew without a doubt that it was hunting him. His mind raced. How had it gotten here? What was it? And most importantly, why had his neighbor, her, allowed him to walk into this? She's hiding something. She's hiding a lot. The realization hit him like a punch to the stomach. She had known what was happening. She had known the creature would be there, and she hadn't warned him. The door had closed too quickly, leaving him to face the horror alone. Was it a mistake? Had she made a grave error, or was it intentional? James stumbled backward, his eyes darting around the room. His surroundings had become an alien landscape, a nightmare rendered in shadows and sickly green light. The walls were covered with strange symbols, etched into the surface in a language that James couldn't even begin to decipher. He didn't have time to try. The creature, with its inhuman form and pulsating mass, continued to advance. Its body was an ever-shifting mass of tendrils and limbs that seemed to exist without rhyme or reason. Its eyes, hollow and pitch-black, were locked onto him. The darkness within them seemed to swallow everything in its path, and as they fixed on him, James felt a cold chill settle deep in his bones. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something primal. Get out. Get out now. But the door behind him was no longer an option. He turned, only to find the space where the door had been was now an impenetrable wall of black energy. It shimmered with a pulsing, sickly light, and as James reached out to touch it, a shock ran through his fingertips, making him pull his hand. Back with a yelp, the creature hissed, its jagged form shifting forward, its tendrils now almost within reach. James's mind went blank for a split second. He needed to think. He needed to survive. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tense silence. "James!" It was her again, his alien neighbor. Her voice, desperate, frantic, pierced through the room like a lifeline. Without thinking, James rushed toward the sound of her voice, ignoring the creature's menacing approach. His fingers grazed the strange markings on the wall as he sprinted forward, guided only by her voice. "Come here," she shouted. "You need to get to the back room." He could hear her footsteps now, quick, hurried, and as he turned the corner into the next chamber, he saw her standing there. Her pale blue skin was illuminated by the strange light from the pedestal, and her silver eyes were wide with fear. She looked almost vulnerable. "Why didn't you tell me?" James shouted, his voice hoarse with panic. "Why the hell didn't you warn me?" She grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. "I couldn't. You wouldn't have believed me. You wouldn't have understood." "Understood what?" He struggled against her grip, his mind racing with questions. "What's going on here? What is that thing, and why is it here?" She hesitated, glancing nervously toward the door as the creature's movements grew louder. "It's not supposed to be here," she muttered, almost to herself. "It wasn't supposed to." The ground beneath their feet suddenly shook, sending both of them stumbling. The creature had gotten closer, its tendrils lashed out, scraping the floor with an unnatural screech. The sound of its movement seemed to warp the very air around them. "We don't have much time," she said urgently, pulling him toward the farthest corner of the room. "Follow me!" James stumbled after her, barely able to keep his footing as the creature's terrifying presence pressed in on them. They reached a narrow door at the back of the room, one James hadn't noticed before. She opened it quickly, and they slipped inside. It was a small, dimly lit room, lined with strange technology that hummed with low, almost imperceptible energy. The air in here was thicker, colder, different from the rest of the apartment. James glanced around, his eyes widening as they landed on the centerpiece of the room, a massive, transparent cylinder filled with a glowing liquid. Inside the cylinder, suspended in the viscous substance, was an object, an artifact, shaped like an egg. It was larger than anything James had ever seen, and it pulsed with a faint, eerie glow. "What is that?" James asked, his voice trembling as he took a step. Closer to the cylinder, "It's a key," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A key to everything." James frowned, not understanding. "A key to what?" She took a deep breath. "To the truth, to what's happening to this planet, to what that thing outside is." She looked away from him, a flash of sorrow passing across her features. "It's a mating season, James. But not the kind you think, not like anything you've ever imagined." "What does that mean?" he demanded. "What does it have to do with me? Why is that thing after me?" She hesitated, her silver eyes darting to the door, where the sound of the creature's presence grew louder. Because you're involved now. You've seen too much." "I don't care about seeing too much," James shouted, frustration boiling inside him. "I need to know what's going on. Why is it here? What does it want from me?" Her gaze softened, and she stepped closer to him, placing a hand on his arm. I'm sorry, James. I never wanted you to get involved, but it's too late now. The creature outside slammed against the door, the force of its impact shaking the room. James's heart skipped a beat. Time was running out. "Tell me what's happening," he said urgently. "Tell me everything." Her eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw something other than cold detachment in them, something raw, vulnerable, human. "The creature outside," she began, her voice shaking, "is a hunter. It's not just any creature. It's a predator, a guardian of sorts. It's here because of what's happening inside me. The mating season, it's a ritual, a dangerous one. And when it happens, creatures like that are sent to track down and eliminate anyone who might interfere." "Interfere with what?" She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around his wrist. "With the birth, with the new generation." James's mind reeled. "Birth? What do you mean? What's being born?" She shook her head. "I can't explain it all right now, but that egg, the one inside the cylinder, it's a seed that was planted here long ago. It's been growing, changing, waiting for the right moment." "Wait, you mean you?" James stammered. You're the one the creature is here for?" She nodded, her expression pained. "Yes, I've been waiting for this moment. I didn't want you to get caught up in it. But now, you know too much." James felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. This is insane. None of this makes sense. But as he stared at her, something in her eyes told him it was the truth. Every bizarre thing that had happened, the strange noises, the creature, the glow, it was all connected. And now he was a part of it. Before he could speak, the creature slammed against the door again, its roars filling the room. It was close, too close. "I'm not going to let it hurt you," she said firmly, grabbing a nearby device off the table. "I'll protect you, but we need to leave. Now." Cliffhanger. The creature's roars grew louder as the door began to buckle. The alien neighbor activated the device, but nothing could prepare them for what would happen next. Would they survive the terrifying mating season, or was this just the beginning of something far darker? The door shook violently as the creature outside battered it with its unnatural strength. James's heart raced, the air in the room thick with tension. His mind struggled to process the bizarre revelation that his alien neighbor was at the center of something much larger, much darker than he could have ever imagined. She stood in front of him, her face determined but pale, as she activated the device in her hand. The hum of the machine filled the room, a low, ominous sound that seemed to resonate through the walls and into James's bones. He wasn't sure what it did, but whatever it was, it had better work, because if it didn't, the creature outside would tear down the door and end their lives in seconds. "What is that thing?" he asked, his voice trembling, unable to shake the fear and disbelief still clinging to him. "It's a defense mechanism," she replied quickly, her eyes scanning the room nervously. "Something I've been working on for months, since the last mating season, in fact. I thought I had more time." "More time for what?" James asked, stepping closer, his thoughts racing. "What's happening here? Why didn't you tell me what you were? Why didn't you tell me about that creature outside? What's it after?" She hesitated for a moment, her gaze flickering to the door, which was still shaking under the force of the creature's attacks. "Because I didn't want to drag you into this. I didn't want you to be a part of something that you couldn't possibly understand." "Well, I'm in it now," James shot back, his voice growing louder, "and I want answers. Why is it hunting you? Why is it hunting me?" The alien neighbor turned to face him, her silver eyes reflecting a mixture of regret and urgency. "It's not just hunting me, it's hunting all of us. And it's not just here for me, it's here for the others like me." James's stomach dropped at her words. "What do you mean, others?" Her lips parted, but before she could answer, there was a sudden, deafening crash. The door splintered under the creature's weight, a jagged crack running down the center. The glowing device in her hand flickered, the hum growing louder, more erratic. "We don't have time," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "We have to leave, now." Before James could react, she grabbed his arm again, her grip tight and urgent. Without warning, she dragged him toward the back of the room, toward another door he hadn't seen before. It was hidden behind a stack of strange equipment and alien machinery, and as she pulled him through it, he caught a glimpse of the creature's glowing eyes through the shattered door. They raced down a narrow, winding corridor that seemed to stretch on forever, the walls pulsating with a strange energy. James's mind whirled as he tried to keep up, but the adrenaline coursing through his veins made it hard to think straight. His feet pounded against the floor, each step bringing them closer to whatever fate awaited them. "What is happening?" James gasped, his breath coming in ragged bursts as they rounded another corner. "Why is that creature after you? What is it really after?" She didn't answer immediately. Her face was tight with concentration as she focused on their escape, her silver eyes flicking to the corridor behind them. The glow from the device in her hand dimmed, and she cursed softly under her breath. "It's hunting for something. For us," she finally said, her voice low and strained. "For the offspring." "The offspring?" James repeated, still struggling to grasp the enormity of the situation. "What are you talking about? What offspring?" She stopped, abruptly, turning to face him. The urgency in her eyes was unmistakable. "You wouldn't understand, not yet. But it's not just a mating season, James. It's a war. A war that's been brewing for centuries, and it's finally reached Earth. The creatures hunting me, they're the enforcers, the ones sent to eliminate any potential threat to the breeding cycle. And I'm part of that cycle." James felt the world tilt beneath him. He could barely process what she was saying. Wait, so you're part of some alien breeding cycle? You mean this isn't just about sex?" "No," she said, her voice sharp. "It's not just about sex. It's about survival, about propagation. And it's not just my species that's involved. There are others, human hybrids, spread across this planet. Some of us are more integrated with humanity than others." James blinked, trying to wrap his head around her words. His thoughts scrambled, trying to make sense of this impossible situation. "Hybrid? You mean what? You're part human?" She nodded, but there was a sadness in her expression that deepened his confusion. "Yes, my species. We've been living among humans for generations. We've integrated into your societies, your communities, but now the mating season is here, and everything is changing. Our species' survival depends on it. And that means the others, the predators, they're here to stop it, to stop us." James stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. "But why is that creature here now, and why is it after me?" She glanced nervously toward the corridor. Behind them, where the sound of the creature's movements grew louder. "It's not after you, James. Not in the way you think. It's after the offspring, and the fact that you've seen me, that you've seen this place. It makes you a liability." "I'm a liability?" James's mind was reeling. "What are you talking about? What does that even mean?" "Because," she continued, "the creatures have been tracking the hybrids for years. They know where we are. They know what we're capable of, and they won't stop until every one of us is eliminated. But there's a problem. Your presence here, it's throwing things off. You're not supposed to know about us, about what's really happening." James's eyes widened. "Are you saying that's why you didn't warn me? Because I wasn't supposed to know any of this?" "Exactly." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If the creature realizes that you know, it will hunt you. It will track you down just like it's hunting me. And the worst part is, it's only the beginning. We're all in danger now, and it's only a matter of time before the rest of the enforcers arrive." Before he could respond, there was another deafening roar from the corridor behind them. The creature was closing in. It was almost here. She grabbed his arm again and yanked him into another small chamber, this one hidden beneath a staircase that led into the darkness. The walls in here were lined with even more alien technology, and there was a strange smell, like ozone and something else, something organic. "We're not safe yet," she muttered, her voice tight with fear. "The worst is still to come." James's mind was on overload, processing information faster than he could comprehend. But one thing was clear. His life had just been turned upside down. The alien neighbor, the creature hunting them, the hybrids, the mating cycle, the enforcers, it was all connected. And now he was a part of it. The creature's roar sounded once again, closer this time. It was coming, and they had no choice but to face whatever would come next. Cliffhanger. As the door to the chamber creaked open, James's breath caught in his throat. The creature's glowing eyes filled the doorway, its massive form silhouetted against the dim light. James realized then that escaping might not be as simple as running. The door to the hidden chamber slammed open with a violent force, and the creature's massive silhouette filled the doorway, its glowing eyes locked onto James and his alien neighbor. The air seemed to grow colder, a chill creeping down James's spine as he stood frozen, caught between a choice of survival and the unknown. His heart pounded against his chest as his alien neighbor quickly stepped in front of him, her body tense but resolute. She muttered something in a language that sent a shiver down his spine, a strange humming resonance that seemed to vibrate through the air itself. Her silver eyes glinted with determination, but the fear was palpable in her voice when she spoke. "Stay. Back, James. Don't make a move," she hissed, her voice barely audible above the creature's growling. The creature stepped closer, its skin glowing with an eerie blue light, its large, jagged claws scraping the ground like talons on stone. Every inch of its presence radiated death. It was a force of nature, a predator that hunted with an unnatural precision. James's breath came in ragged gasps, his mind struggling to catch up with the chaos unfolding around him. "What is it? What does it want?" "It's a hunter, and it's here for me." Her voice was steady, but there was a flicker of fear in her eyes that she couldn't hide. "It's not here to kill you, but if it thinks you're in the way, it won't hesitate." "Then why are we standing here?" James whispered, his voice hoarse. He felt the weight of her gaze, and for the first time he realized how deeply this situation ran. His simple life had been shattered by something far bigger than he could ever have imagined. Her eyes flickered toward the creature, whose predatory gaze was still locked onto her. The beast's growls reverberated through the chamber, its massive limbs flexing as it tested the space around it. "I need you to trust me," she said, taking a step toward the creature. "This is bigger than you think, James. There's something you don't know, something you need to understand. You're not just a random person caught up in this." James felt his stomach churn. What could she possibly mean by that? He had stumbled into this mess through nothing more than curiosity and a desire to help her. But now every part of him was screaming for answers. "Who are you, really?" he asked, his voice trembling. "What do you want from me? Why is this creature hunting us?" She hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. The beast was getting closer, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Her lips parted, but the words she was about to speak were cut off by a sudden, blinding light from the device she held. It flared to life in her hands, a pulse of energy that surged through the room with a deafening hum. The creature recoiled, its massive body shuddering as the light struck it. It screeched, an inhuman sound that rattled the walls and filled the chamber with terror. James instinctively stepped back, but the alien neighbor didn't move. She remained standing, her stance firm, her eyes unwavering. "It's afraid of this. Light," she said, her voice low but commanding, "but it won't hold it off forever." James watched, wide-eyed, as the creature backed away, its glowing eyes never leaving them. It seemed to consider the situation for a moment, as if calculating its next move. Then, with a guttural roar, it lunged forward with incredible speed, its claws outstretched, aiming for the alien woman. Without thinking, James dove in front of her, pushing her aside and taking the brunt of the attack. The creature's claws raked across his back, sharp as knives, and pain exploded in his chest as he collided with the floor. "James!" she cried, her voice filled with panic. He gritted his teeth and tried to push himself up, but the pain was overwhelming. His hands were slick with blood, and his vision was starting to blur. He could feel the creature's breath, hot and rancid, behind him, and he knew that time was running out. If she didn't act quickly, they would both be dead. But instead of attacking again, the creature hesitated, its glowing eyes fixed on James. There was an unsettling pause, as if it was evaluating him. Then slowly it stepped back, its growls fading as it withdrew. "What the hell?" James muttered, his voice barely a whisper. The alien neighbor stood beside him now, her expression unreadable. She reached out to help him, but he pulled back, his chest heaving as he tried to process what had just happened. The creature had attacked and then, inexplicably, had stopped. "Why?" "It didn't kill you," she murmured, almost to herself. "It should have killed you." "Why didn't it?" James asked, the confusion and fear still gnawing at him. His hand pressed against the wound on his chest, and he winced as fresh blood oozed from the deep gash. "What do you mean by that?" She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she focused on the creature, who was now pacing around the edge of the room. There was something almost human about the way it moved, something intelligent and calculating in its gaze. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "It should have killed you. But there's something strange happening. I've never seen it hesitate like that." James looked back at her, his mind still reeling. "So, what does that mean? Does that mean we're safe?" She shook her head, her face grim. "No, it means we're far from safe. The creature is part of something much bigger, something you can't even begin to understand. But what you need to know is that you're not just some bystander in this war. You're connected to it, in ways I don't fully understand myself." His heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? How am I connected?" "You're more important than you realize, James," she said, her voice low, almost reverent. "You have a role to play in all of this. Whether you like it or not, you're part of this battle now." His head spun, and he fought to stay conscious, as the room seemed to blur around him. "I don't want to be part of any battle." "You don't have a choice," she replied softly, her voice tinged with sorrow. "This war, it's been going on for centuries, and it's about to reach a tipping point. The enforcers are here, and they won't stop until they've destroyed everything in their path." James stared at her, his mind still struggling to keep up. He had barely wrapped his head around the fact that his neighbor wasn't human, and now she was telling him that he was involved in some kind of war. "Why me?" he whispered, barely able to speak through the pain. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled something from her pocket, a small, glowing artifact that pulsed with a strange energy. She held it in her hand, her fingers trembling slightly as she looked at him. "This is why," she said, her voice soft, "you have a part in this, a part I didn't know about until now." Cliffhanger. As the creature's growls grew louder once more, James felt a deep sense of dread sink into his chest. The alien neighbor's revelation had changed everything. Whatever this artifact was, whatever role he was supposed to play, he knew one thing for sure: his life would never be the same again. The tension in the air was suffocating. The creature, its glowing eyes fixed on James and his alien neighbor, snarled again, its jagged teeth gleaming in the dim light. The alien woman stood beside him, her silver eyes unwavering. But there was something different about her now. A deep sorrow hung in the way she moved, like a heavy weight that she had been carrying for too long. James, still bleeding from the creature's initial attack, fought to stay upright. His head throbbed, and every breath felt like a struggle, but in the face of this strange alien creature, he had no choice but to press on. What the hell was going on? How had he ended up in the middle of this war between beings far beyond human comprehension? The creature made another step forward, its massive form blocking the exit. The sound of its claws scraping against the stone floor filled the room with an almost deafening resonance. There was no way out. They were trapped, and James knew, deep down, that if they didn't act fast, they wouldn't be getting out of this alive. James... The alien neighbor's voice was low, strained, as she gripped his arm, her touch surprisingly firm. "You need to listen to me. What I'm about to tell you is the most important thing you'll ever know, and it's the only thing that can keep us alive." He nodded weakly, trying to focus on her words, despite the overwhelming fear coursing through his veins. His body felt like it was made of lead, each movement more difficult than the last. But the seriousness in her voice made him forget the pain, if only for a moment. "You're not just a random person caught in this mess," she continued, her eyes locked onto his, every word heavy with meaning. "You have a connection to the royal bloodline, James. Your blood. It's the key to ending this war." His mind reeled at her words. His blood? What the hell was she talking about? My blood? He shook his head, trying to make sense of it. How could I possibly be connected to a royal bloodline? I'm just a regular guy. She stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "Not anymore. You were chosen, James. You were taken from Earth for a reason. Your true heritage was hidden from you, for your own protection. But now that's all changing. You're the heir to a throne that was lost long ago, and the time has come for you to claim it." James felt his knees buckle, and he leaned against the wall for support. He couldn't process what she was saying. An heir to a throne. It sounded like something out of a sci-fi movie, except it wasn't. It was his reality now. "How is that possible?" he whispered, barely able to get the words out. "I'm human. I was raised by humans. I don't know anything about royalty, let alone an alien throne." Her expression softened, and for the first time James saw the vulnerability in her eyes. "You were chosen by the Council, James. You were hidden away on Earth to protect you from the enforcers, the ones who want to destroy your family's legacy. They've been hunting you for years, waiting for the moment when you would finally be ready to take your place." James looked down at his hands, his heart pounding. He was still trying to wrap his mind around the reality of the situation. Alien royalty? Enforcers? He felt like he was losing his grip on everything he thought he knew about the world. "And the enforcers?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do they want with me?" "They want to erase you, James. They want to destroy your bloodline, your legacy. If they kill you, they'll end the war. But if you live, if you claim your birthright, you can stop it all." His head spun. The weight of her words was too much to bear. He had no idea how to react. He wasn't some royal heir. He was just a guy who happened to get wrapped up in a battle he didn't understand. And now, with everything on the line, he didn't know how to fight back. The creature, still pacing in front of them, gave a low, guttural growl. It seemed to be watching them both closely, its eyes narrowed, calculating. For a moment, it stopped, moving entirely as if waiting for something. James swallowed hard. "How do we stop this? How do I stop them?" The alien woman didn't answer immediately. She glanced at the creature, then back at James, her face a mixture of sadness and determination. "You need to activate the relic. It's the only way. The artifact I gave you earlier, it holds the power of the royal line. If you can unlock its true potential, You'll be able to stop the enforcers and end this war once and for all." James felt the weight of the small, glowing artifact in his pocket. It was like a piece of something far bigger than he could understand. It pulsed with an energy that seemed to resonate with the very core of his being. But how was he supposed to activate it? What did that even mean? "How do I use it?" he asked, his voice trembling with urgency. She stepped closer, placing her hand over his. Her touch was warm, almost comforting. "You'll know when the time comes, James. The relic will respond to you. You have to trust yourself, and trust the blood that runs through your veins." Before he could ask anything more, the creature's growl intensified, and with a roar, it lunged at them again. But this time, the alien woman was ready. She raised her hand, and the glowing artifact flared to life, casting an intense beam of light across the chamber. The creature screeched, its body writhing in agony as the light enveloped it. James shielded his eyes, but he couldn't look away. The light from the relic was unlike anything he had ever seen. Pure energy that seemed to cut through the air like a blade. The creature staggered back, its massive body convulsing as it tried to escape the light. But the alien woman didn't. "Stop!" She pushed forward, her face contorted in concentration as the light grew brighter, more intense. The creature let out one final, deafening scream before its form dissolved into a cloud of dust, scattered by the force of the light. The room was silent now, the air heavy with the aftermath of the battle. James stood there, his heart racing, unsure of what had just happened. One moment, the creature had been charging at them, and the next, it was gone. "What just happened?" he gasped, trying to catch his breath. "Did we just kill it?" "No," she said quietly, lowering the artifact, and turning to him. "It's not dead. It's simply been banished for now, but that won't hold it off forever. We need to move quickly." "Move? Where? What do we do now?" She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and urgency. "Now we go to the heart of the storm. The enforcers will be looking for us, and if they find us, it's over. But there's still hope, James. The relic will guide us." He nodded, still in shock, as they made their way deeper into the chamber. Every step felt like it was leading them into the unknown. But there was no turning back now. James had to find out what he was meant to do, and somehow he had to stop the enforcers before they wiped everything out. But as they moved deeper into the shadows, the sound of distant footsteps echoed through the halls, and James realized that time was running out. Cliffhanger. As the footsteps drew closer, the reality of their situation hit James harder than ever. He wasn't just running from danger, he was running towards something that could change everything. But the question remained, would he be able to embrace his destiny before it was too late? James could feel the weight of his destiny pressing down on him. His legs were heavy, his mind racing, but there was no time to stop. He could hear the enforcers' footsteps echoing through the winding tunnels, their approach growing closer. Every instinct told him to run, but he knew that wasn't an option anymore. They had already come this far. The relic, the artifact that was supposed to unlock his true power, was still tucked securely in his pocket. But every time he tried to understand what it meant, his mind felt clouded. Was it truly the key to stopping the war, to saving everything that mattered? The alien woman, her name he now realized was Alina, had been guiding him through this strange, terrifying journey for what felt like years, though it had only been a matter of days. Her steady presence had kept him grounded, even when the world around him had crumbled. "We have to reach the core, James," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "The enforcers won't stop until they've erased the bloodline completely, and they will do whatever it takes to destroy you. The only chance we have is to unlock the power of the relic. The heart of the storm is where it all started. It's where everything will end." He nodded grimly. Every step they took seemed to lead them deeper into the labyrinth of stone, but the enforcers were right behind them. He could feel it in the pit of his stomach. They weren't just pursuing him for the relic, they were hunting him like prey. "How do we know when we're close?" he asked, his voice low, barely audible over the sound of their footsteps. Alina glanced back, her face illuminated by the dim glow of the relic still in her hand. "The relic will guide you, James. You have to trust it. You have to trust yourself." But that was the problem. How could he trust something he barely understood? What if he wasn't strong enough? What if he wasn't the heir she claimed him to be? What if everything was a lie? "You're not alone in this," Alina added, her voice softer now as if sensing his doubts. "You never have been." James swallowed hard, taking in her words. He had to stop second-guessing himself. This wasn't just about survival, it was about a future that depended on his actions, and he wasn't the only one depending on him. A faint glow up ahead caught his attention, flickering in the darkness. It wasn't much, just a glimmer of light, but it was enough to set his heart racing. The end was near. The core, the heart of the storm, was just ahead. Suddenly the ground beneath them trembled. A deep, guttural roar echoed from the distance. The enforcers had found them. The chase had reached its peak. Without another word, James broke into a run, his legs burning as he pushed himself forward. Alina kept pace with him, her determination matching his. The light grew brighter as they neared the end of the passage. The air felt different here, charged with energy, as if something powerful was waiting for them. As they rounded the final corner, they emerged into a vast chamber. It was enormous, the walls stretching high into the darkness above. And in the center of the room, surrounded by a swirling vortex of energy, was a massive stone structure, a throne, ancient and covered in runes. "This is it," Alina said, her voice tinged with awe. "This is where it all began." James stopped in his tracks, his eyes locked onto the throne. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. The relic in his pocket pulsed in response to the sight, as if it recognized its destination. "How do I activate it?" James asked, turning to Alina. "You are the key," she said softly. "Step forward and let the relic reveal its power. It will respond to you, James. You are the heir. This is your birthright." His heart hammered in his chest. This was it. The moment he had been running toward. The moment everything would change. He reached into his pocket, his fingers trembling as he pulled out the glowing relic. It felt warm in his hand, vibrating with energy. As soon as his fingers wrapped around it, a bright light erupted from the artifact, filling the chamber with blinding brilliance. The light swirled around him, enveloping him in a cocoon of power. For a moment everything went silent. Time seemed to stretch out, as if the universe itself had stopped to watch. James felt the relic in his hand pulse with a life of its own, and suddenly the throne began to glow as well, the runes carved into its surface lighting up with an ancient power. "You have to claim it, James," Alina urged, her voice distant but clear. "This is your destiny." He took a step forward, and as he did, the relic responded. It began to glow brighter, and the energy in the room seemed to intensify. The throne, the chamber, everything began to resonate with the relic's power. It was like the very core of the universe was aligning around him, and then the earth beneath his feet cracked open, revealing a hidden chamber below, one that had been sealed for millennia. In the center of the chamber lay a glowing crystal, its energy pulsing in time with the relic in his hand. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. He approached the crystal, his heart racing. The relic began to hum louder, its vibrations syncing with the crystal's energy. James reached out, placing his hand on the surface of the glowing gem. At that moment, the world exploded in light. Cliffhanger. As the energy surged through James, his body feeling like it was being torn apart and remade all at once, he saw the enforcers closing in from the shadows. They were too late, or were they? What had he unlocked? What did it mean for the future?